Hey there, Saki here from sakitech, and in today's video we will do a full comparison between the iPhone 7 versus the iPhone 6s. The iPhone 6s was released in September 2015 and the iPhone 7 came to light in September 2016 after a full year. Both of these smartphones look almost identical, which is making some people wonder, is the iPhone 7 better than the iPhone 6s? Or is it actually worth upgrading from 6s to 7? And of course, you have people who either don't have a smartphone or belong to the Android realm who want to switch over to Apple but can't decide between the 6s or the 7. Well, in this video, we will do a full and complete comparison between the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 7 and tackle all those questions and concerns directly. Let's dive in and start off with the build quality. As you can see, the iPhone 6s and iPhone 7 look identical. They're built using 7000 series aluminum and are encased in a gorgeous unibody styling. When you hold either phone in your hands, you get a very satisfying and solid sensation. These phones are without a question premium devices, and they look equally gorgeous thanks to that smooth and continuous form factor. Now, when you inspect these phones a little closer, some little differences come to light. On the back, the iPhone 7 lacks those two annoying white strips that plague the iPhone 6s. They shouldn't have been there in the first place, and they're gone. Another thing that is gone is the headphone jack. When you buy the iPhone 7, you get earphones that plug directly into the only port you will find on the iPhone 7, the Lightning port. But don't worry, if you have older headphones, you still get a Lightning to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter just in case. And as you can see, the newer camera on the iPhone 7 is in fact larger, and we will talk about the camera in a little bit. A non-visual tweak on the iPhone 7 is that the home button is now a solid state button that simply responds to pressure. Unlike on the iPhone 6s, it cannot be physically pressed in. It does, however, have a built-in taptic engine to give you haptic feedback, so you do know when you actually interact with it. And finally, here's a major improvement. The iPhone 7 is now water, splash, and dust resistant, rated with IP67 water resistance designation. This means that you can pull out your iPhone 7 on a rainy day to take a picture or take a phone call, and also not worry about accidental drops into a pond of water and such. But don't attempt to take your iPhone 7 for swimming, as it is not designed for such feats. So overall, we have two identical phones, equally well built and equally stunning. But the iPhone 7 has some clear improvements such as water resistance and elimination of older technology, the headphone jack. So let's move on to the processor. The iPhone 7 comes with a quad-core A10 Fusion processor and 2GB of RAM, while the iPhone 6s comes with an A9 dual-core processor and 2GB of RAM. Performance-wise, Apple has stated that the iPhone 7 has up to 40% faster processing performance and 50% faster graphics performance than the iPhone 6s, which is fantastic. Both the iPhone 7 and 6s, if purchased brand new, will start with a minimum of 32GB of internal storage for the base model. With the iPhone 7, you can increase storage to 128GB or 256GB for a premium. But with the iPhone 6s, you can either get a 32GB model or a 128GB model. At the end of this video, I will run a processor and memory benchmark on both of these phones to see just how much faster the iPhone 7 is. So stay tuned for that. For now, let's move on to the display. Both phones sport a 4.7-inch IPS LCD display with a screen resolution of 1334 by 750 pixels at 326 pixels per inches. Now, the display on the iPhones are pretty advanced. They are very bright and also have great color accuracy. The iPhone 7 actually improves on those 2 points. It is now 25% brighter, which means better visibility in bright environments, and also has a wider color gamut, which means even better color accuracy. So we do have an improvement in this category that is notable, though it's not a category to be too concerned about when trying to make a choice. So let's move on to dimensions. The dimensions are identical. Both phones measure 138.3mm in height, 67.1mm wide, and 7.1mm thick. But we do have a difference in weight. 6s weighs 143 grams, while the 7 weighs 138 grams. As you can see, this is a category of no concern unless you actually care about the 5 gram difference in weight. let's move on to the software. Now, as far as software experience goes, you won't notice much of a difference. Both phones come with the latest version of iOS and they run as smooth as a phone can run. There's no lag, no stutters, everything just works. And you get access to the same app ecosystem, which means all apps and games you can have on the iPhone 7 can also be had on the iPhone 6s. One thing I will say is that, as we discussed, the iPhone 7 has faster processing and graphical performance, so it may give you a better experience with newer games that will be released in the future. As of now, the iPhone 6s certainly has the necessary internals to play any game with maximum quality and smoothness. And of course, the same applies with heavy-duty apps such as video editing apps. Additionally, the 6s and 7 have 3D Touch. 3D Touch has been improving and is getting more handier with every update to iOS. With 3D Touch, what you get is a pressure-sensitive screen that can sense how firmly you are pressing on the screen. Based on the force with which you press, it will offer you two functions, peek and pop. You can press lightly on the screen to peek into the content to get previews, and you can then press down even firmer to pop into the full content that you just previewed. You can also 3D press on an app icon to bring up menus that allow for quick actions such as the right-click button on a Windows system. 3D Touch also extends to in-app use, so you will get access to 3D Touch gestures within Apple apps and developer apps. So again, in a category as important as software, iPhone 6s and iPhone 7 offer pretty similar experiences, with the exception of the 7 potentially pulling ahead in the future with the release of more demanding apps and games. For now, let's move on to the camera. iPhone 7 sports a 12 megapixel rear-facing camera with an aperture of f1.8, while the iPhone 6s sports a 12 megapixel rear camera with an aperture of f2.2. As you can see, the iPhone 7 now has a larger aperture, which has a direct benefit of better low-light photography. In addition to having a larger aperture, iPhone 7 also has optical image stabilization, which is a premium feature and also has a direct benefit of better low-light photography and more stable video recording, as it also compensates for hand shake. The iPhone 7 is going to be a much better camera. Not only does it have a larger aperture and optical image stabilization, it also has a better image processing chip. Add up all these improvements together, and as a result, you get a camera with glaringly obvious better low-light photos, as well as finer details and better and wider color capture. If you want the best iPhone camera, you have to look at the iPhone 7. But let me be very clear. If you do decide to stick with the iPhone 6s, just understand that the 6s camera is still much better than 90% of the smartphones out there today. It still produces very crisp and detail-rich photos, but obviously the 7 is a step up. As for video, both phones can record 4K video at 30 frames per second. You can also record full high-definition 1080p videos at 60 or 30 frames per second, and you can record super slow-motion videos at 720p with 240 frames per second, as well as 1080p slow-motion video with 120 frames per second. Because the iPhone 7 has optical image stabilization, it will produce slightly more stabilized videos. We also have an upgrade on the iPhone 7 on the front camera. It is now 7 megapixels with f2.2 as opposed to 5 megapixels f2.2 camera on the iPhone 6s. And finally, the iPhone 7 can now record 1080p using front FaceTime camera, while the 6s was limited to 720p. So basically, you will get better selfies and enjoy crisper video conferencing. Let's give the crown in this department to the iPhone 7 and move on to the battery. I'll make this very simple. With the iPhone 7, you get 1 to 2 hours of extra battery life, period. And if you are curious, the capacity on the iPhone 7 is 1960 milliamp hours, while the iPhone 6s has a 1715 milliamp hours battery. Of course, the larger battery on the iPhone 7 isn't the only reason for the extra battery life. The other reason is the more efficient A10 Fusion processor. Overall, both the iPhone 6s and 7 will last a full day of medium use. But because the iPhone 7 has a longer battery life, you will get more done on the iPhone 7 within that full day, such as perhaps squeezing a little extra gaming or video watching time, or maybe even wasting further time on your Facebook page or Twitter feed. Let's talk about security. Both phones sport the second generation Touch ID sensor, which works lightning fast and with 99.9% accuracy every single time. You can use the Touch ID sensor to unlock your phone, make payments via Apple Pay, sign into apps, and a few other useful things. Things look great here, so let's move on to the colors and pricing options. The iPhone 6s is available in space gray, silver, gold, and rose gold colors. It starts at $529 for the 32GB model, while the iPhone 7 is available in jet black, black, silver, gold, and rose gold colors. The 7 starts at $649. And a quick word on the jet black color. It certainly is gorgeous. But Apple does warn in the fine print that nobody reads that due to its shiny surface, it is prone to micro abrasions, which means nasty scratches. So a case will be needed to protect it, although I recommend a case for any iPhone. And I know that a lot of you heard about the AirPods, but that's not an iPhone 7 exclusive accessory. The AirPods use Bluetooth technology, so you can buy them for any iPhone you want. Now let's quickly run a processor and memory benchmark tool to see what kind of speeds we can achieve with these two iPhones and whether or not the iPhone 7 is noticeably faster. We will be using the Geekbench benchmarking tool to make this comparison. So firstly, let's kill all the background tasks and launch Geekbench, and then I'm going to fast forward this video to the end so we can inspect the results. As you can see from these results, the iPhone 7 is a beast. In the single-core performance, it pulls ahead by 1,000 points, and in the multi-core performance, it pulls ahead by 1,500 points. There really is no need to comment, the numbers speak for themselves. Let's move on. So let's draw a conclusion, but before that, let's quickly list everything important that has improved on the iPhone 7. iPhone 7 is water resistant. Say goodbye to water damage from spills and splashes or even accidental drops into water ponds. iPhone 7 has faster processing and graphical performance, which might be relevant to play the newest games at maximum performance and tackle heavy-duty apps, even faster than the 6s. It is important to note that the 6s is no slouch. iPhone 7 has a better camera with optical image stabilization and a larger aperture. Again, despite that, 6s camera is still a top-notch cam. And there is one more improvement that I did not mention throughout this comparison, is that the iPhone 7 Plus now has dual stereo speakers that produce twice the sound as the iPhone 6s Plus. Now let's take a look at what is the same, what hasn't really changed. Both iPhones have a 4.7-inch screen with the same resolution. Both phones have a similar software experience and 3D touch. Both iPhones have the same design and dimensions. They have the same fingerprint technology. So iPhone 7 certainly has gained some improvements. But for someone who still owns an iPhone 6s, it will not be a major upgrade because the 6s is still a beast of a phone. However, if you own an iPhone 6 and decide to upgrade, you will notice a considerable difference, not counting the design. I say that if you own a 6s, do not upgrade until the next iPhone. If you own an iPhone 6, do upgrade and be amazed. But if you are one of those people who is coming from a different ecosystem, perhaps Microsoft or Android, and are trying to decide between the 6s and 7, I say get the 7 because it is only $100 more than the 6s. And the improvements you get for that $100 are in fact worth it. And that's it. So drop a comment below and let me know which phone you chose and why. Give me some details. And of course, give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to sakitech. I will see you the next time. Have a fantastic day.